is the kind of the aspect of doing it with somebody else as opposed to yourself. You know, it's you know, we're all documenting ourselves. It's the act of listening and sitting and listening to somebody else. That's what's rare, and I think it's more so than the written record that's left over. It's the act of listening and the kind of compassion and the generosity that's built into that act that is the more important element of the work than the written record that's left over.
Has there been one story like that you've got?
The last person asked me that. It's so hard to answer just because there's been so many. It would be literally 10,000. And so the ones that stick with me the longest are the ones that there's a lot of people I've raised money for, and then I kind of keep track of them to see how they're doing. Like when I've inserted myself into somebody's narrative, that's when I kind of most keep in touch with them. There's a refugee we helped. There's a boy that we helped get an education. Just this morning I was emailing, how are things going, and I'm emailing with their teachers, and so those are the ones that kind of stick with me the most, are the ones that me or the audience has kind of, raised money or done something to kind of impact the situation. Yeah.
Talk about your body language as a listener in an interview.
Right. Well, especially you want to hear something hilarious? So I talked about that like a long time ago, how I kind of collapse my body, and when I crouch, and I think I gave an interview very early on where I said, because this doesn't really happen anymore, but when I was first starting and before Humans of New York was famous and it was just a guy with a camera, and I was having a really hard time getting females to stop and talk to me because I'm a tall guy, I'm walking up to them, can I take your picture? It's kind of inherently an intimidating thing. And so I gave an interview and I talked about, I find myself kind of collapsing my body when I approach somebody, so I'm not quite as tall, and I'll talk. So somehow that interview got turned into an entire section of the PSATs this year. So every high schooler, every junior and senior in America read this like 2-page thing about how what they took away from it was that I crouched down to get women to talk to me. And so, I know, it was so funny. So I was just being dragged on Twitter and Instagram. I was being made fun of because all these 15 and 16-year-olds didn't really know who I was. Some guy named Brandon Stanton. So I just woke up on Twitter one morning and everybody's making fun of Brandon Stanton, the guy who crouches down low to talk to women. But yeah, just like, anything. The main one, any picture you see of me working really, like on the street, like so many times you'll see me on the ground. I think my interpreters in other countries hate it because I always like sit on the ground and they think it's gross or whatever, and they have to get down there with me. I always try to make myself lower than somebody. A lot of times if somebody's talking about something very personal, like I won't look them in the eye, I'll find a piece of grass to kind of play with. And like all of these things have just kind of like I've learned just through doing 10,000 times. It's not like I made a plan of what I was going to do. It's just like doing it so many times, you just kind of naturally get an instinct for what makes somebody comfortable. And I kind of do all of those things. Talk softly, get low, if it's a very vulnerable part of the story, maybe kind of give them some space and, look away, things like that. Yeah.
We've got 5 more minutes, maybe 2 more questions.
Okay.
Humans of New York has gone global. There's Humans of Toronto and Humans of Dublin. Are you connected with those?
I'm not, but I think it's a wonderful thing. It's kind of been a growth process. When I first started, and Humans of New York was very small and not making any money and not self-sustaining. Like those other projects scared me because it's like, no, my idea, you know what I mean? And then it kind of, I grew into like a live and let live. Like Humans of New York was, I've got it trademarked, but I've never sent anybody a letter or asked anybody to stop doing it. And then recently, I've started kind of viewing those other projects as one of the greatest things that Humans of New York has got going, because some of them are very good. Some of them are horrible. Like it's just like you hate it when somebody like uses your idea and all they do is approach like young attractive women. Like there's some there's some versions of it which are like think people use my work in ways that I don't like. But some people do really good jobs with it, and So if people discover their work, it's not long before they discover Humans of New York. So I find that these other projects, and I'm talking like 6 or 7 years ago, when I was very nervous when the first few of them started to pop up, ended up being what I think, is one of Humans of New York's best attributes. And I think, I'm so busy myself doing the work, but I think sometimes it might be better if I did contact these people and kind of encourage them and help them out, yeah.
There was this 1,000 people petitioning in Belgium for you to come and do something with Humans of Brussels.
Oh, did they
2
really?
years ago.
Oh.
And I wanted to know if you were aware of that.
I'm not aware of it, but I'm aware of it now.
There you go.
Look it up, yeah.
No, because Belgium had a hard time 2 years ago, and so they were like, we need Brandon Stanton to come and do Humans of Brussels.
I'll go look it up.
And
yeah.
I'll send you the link to
I
the
will go.
petition. Well, I got like 6,000 people signing.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay, so yeah, I'll go. I still haven't made a Europe swing. I did South Asia this winter, so I'm going. I'm trying. The next book's going to be international work, so I contractually have to go everywhere. So which is exhausting. I was like, why did I sign that piece of paper? Yeah.
One quick question, if I could ask. So you talked about how your interview shoot is about an hour.
Yeah.
But how long does it take to break down the barrier so people will start freely talking to you?
Well, it's just like sometimes never, it's like sometimes, and you can kind of feel, like if somebody's open to the process, you can kind of feel it pretty quickly, so it's, what I do is, if somebody's seeming like they're not going to want to be open and genuine, like, I never feel bad, like, that's not a bad thing, it's like completely their right to not want to talk to a stranger, but then I'll normally kind of move on. You can feel very early on if somebody is kind of comfortable enough to disclose within some of the first few questions, so that's something I'm very sensitive to, yeah. Awesome.
Let's take some pictures.
Absolutely. Okay. Who wants the mic?